administrator at the STAR Center. The STAR Center is a simulation center that we do here in the College of Nursing. It's essentially a replica of a hospital. So here at the university, in the College of Nursing, we have what's called the Simulation Teaching and Research Center. It's the Diane, Ramy, Faulconer Simulation Teaching and Research Center. It's a facility that we use to train all our students, all our nursing students, members of the College of Nursing and Health Sciences, which includes physical therapy, occupational therapy, a PT, physical therapy, and athletic training. The facility is 130 people at a time. Sorry. There's 8 simulation rooms. So this is exactly what the facility looks like. So as you come in, there's an entryway, and we have clinical skills areas. So there's areas where our students come in and it replicates essentially an ER. So it's an emergency room facility, which on the slide, it's right here on the bottom large side. So in that area, there are 9 emergency room spaces with our nursing stations. Our students come in here on a regular basis, and what they do is they come in and study learning objectives and specific items that they're there to learn for that day. We'll put it up on the screen, and then they will break out into different areas and practice on mannequins. So we're here today to bring up why we are presenting for biomedical. So our biomedical students, we partner with them in many areas to where we have them come in and they present with us on issues like the mannequins here. We use them as a way to teach our students. The mannequins are very middle fidelity or high fidelity. We use them in many different areas. This is an example of a mannequin that we use for simulation. We bring out and we present to students in schools so that they can see that what we present, what we're doing is not only from a science perspective. I'm a technical person, right? I run all the equipment and technology in the center, but I work with students so that they can understand that on the back end, we need engineering students as yourself, biomedical engineering students, to come up with ideas to help us teach our students, to give them the fidelity and the reality of what it is to work in a clinical space. So we use equipment like Super Torre here. So Super Torre is one of our many mannequins that we use in the center. So we have pediatric, premature babies, all the way up to adults. Super Torre here is one of our smallest simulators that we use. The simulators are designed to replicate a human pathology, right? So our students come into the center, and the idea is for them to be able to feel like they're in a regular clinical space, that what they're going to interact with is what they're going to interact with in the hospital setting. So we try and give them as much realistic equipment as possible. So Super Torre here, as you can see, she moves. She can has heart sounds, bowel sounds, lung sounds. She basically can replicate, all our mannequins can replicate the pathology that any other human can, except for predominantly right now, they can't get up and walk, right? So as the advent of technology continues to grow, we continue to move in that way in the field. So Super Torre, as you can see, can move. Her mouth moves. I can make her cry. So it's kind of low because she's in the incubator, but essentially we can insert fluids in them so they can bleed, they can have tears, they can draw blood on them. We try and make it as realistic as possible. And we have all the way up to, like I said, adults. So we have adult males, we have a pediatric, a mother. So they come from a family, essentially. We call them the family. So the company that we work with that manufactures these is called Goldmark Scientific. They're a local company here in Miami. So they have the mother, which is Victoria. Victoria is a pregnant mom. We use them to do all our OB simulations. So Victoria, she actually can deliver the baby. So she actually fully goes through the birthing process. We deliver the baby, and we have our rotation for our students, so they get the full experience. You can deliver her, the placenta, umbilical cord, the whole nine. It's like it's a real delivery, right? So on the back end is the communication, right? So we control it all through these tablets here, and it allows us to manipulate anything that we want on the mannequin. So we can change their heart rate, we can change their lung sounds to give the pathology that the students need for that specific scenario. So it allows them to then come in and we can manipulate it for that occasion. So in the center, we are able to create scenarios and cases for our students that basically allows them to get specified education. So they have clinical hours that they have to go to the hospital and experience. But what they go out into the hospital is they're going to only see what they get that comes into the hospital that day, right? So in the clinical setting, in the center, in the simulation, we can tailor our cases to give them specific experiences that we would want them to learn and get exposed to so that they can deal with those scenarios in the real world, right? So we use the simulators in this case. We also have our nurse anesthetist program, which is why I have the 3D model here, the ultrasound. So all these scenarios, we are able to use our simulators on these. We at times bring in biomedical students from our program here, and sometimes they have to do their senior programs, they have to do capstones, and they have to develop an idea of a project of how they can help assist us or individuals throughout the country as to how they can provide a solution to, let's say, an issue. We've done projects where students have come in and they've come to us and asked us, what is it that you guys are experiencing in your space that you have not been able to resolve, a solution that you guys have? And we had a student that one time came in and we wanted to be able to take the blood glucose level of our mannequins, right? So the mannequins, they don't have real blood, and they were able to develop a monitor. So how many of you know what a blood glucose is? Okay. So the monitor, they have to prick the finger, right? Then take the sample, put it on, and then it reads it. So they were able to develop a simulator that would simulate the blood level glucose for the mannequins, and we were able to then use it in our simulations. They also have had projects where they've come in and developed stethoscopes that you can hear the different heart rates, but it's already, you can manipulate it remotely right on the stethoscope. So instead of them having to place it on the mannequin and us having to physically change it, you can manipulate the actual stethoscope directly and not have to use it on a high fidelity mannequin like this. The nice thing about simulation is it could be as simple as just a static mannequin on the table to a high fidelity mannequin that has animatronics and mechanics inside and servos that we can manipulate, right? But there's different areas of need. So sometimes we might use a lower fidelity mannequin, and other times we'll use a high fidelity mannequin, right? Let me turn this. Let me go back to the slide of the center. So in the clinical space, which is this area right here, so this is our clinical skills lab. That area, as you can see, is large. It's designed to mimic ER setting and a clinical space. We have large area where they sit and they work with the individual mannequins. They'll come in, they'll do an evaluation as to what they want to learn, and then they'll do their breakout sessions. All the mannequins in there are to mimic real life settings. So all the equipment on the walls, all the equipment that we use is to be used as if it was a real space. Some of the equipment is not for human use, but is for practical use for us. So it's developed for simulation purposes only, right? On the top side, there's 8 rooms. Those 8 rooms on the top are our simulation suites. Those simulation suites are where we conduct our simulation activities. So those suites, we bring in and we can make them whatever we want them. If we want to do a surgical encounter, as we do, for example, anesthesia on the top right, those are our anesthesia environment. So we'll bring in there, we have it more of a surgical setting. We have the ventilators. We have a mannequin that we use that has a system that was designed for replicating the airway. So again, this is a product that was designed specifically for simulation to build and respond to a need that in anesthesia, when they run their simulations, they need to learn a specific task. It's a simple task, but it's something that all anesthesia students need to use, and it's on the ventilator, there's a bag that inflates and deflates. The bag is designed to do one thing and one thing only. Does anybody know what that bag is? A ventilator is used for? So on a ventilator, they mask you or they intubate you, they put you on a vent because you can't breathe for yourself, right? So the machine is there to breathe for you. They have to learn a task of manually providing oxygen to the patient. So they have to squeeze this bag on a regular basis. It's a tactile thing. The only way they can get that skill is if the ventilator is providing inhalation and exhalation. So the mannequin that we use has a system that was designed by a company called Ingmar Scientific that it replicates the airway of a human. So the mannequin is connected to this compressor that's attached through a tubing into the mannequin, and that mannequin now has an airway that's similar to a human, so that when we put it on the vent, the mannequin now breathes, inhales, and exhales, just like you and I. So that when they put the mannequin on the vent or they bag him, they're going to get the volume response that they're needing. We can manipulate the airway so that it could be an obstructed airway, it could be a difficult patient. So during COVID, we were at the early stages of COVID. There was a big call out, and throughout the world in general no one really knew what COVID was, how it was affecting people in the sense of their airway and their health. They did understand that there was problems where the airways were getting constricted and becoming difficult for people to breathe. So they started calling out for ventilators. People started developing airway machines and ventilators and different ways to try and provide the access to the demand that people were estimating was going to be needed. So here at FIU, there was a professor that was doing that. He was developing his own smaller, quick response built ventilator so that it could be quickly deployed. It could be built quickly and dispersed out if people really were in need of it. They came in and they called us and they wanted to test their ventilator. They wanted to know if the vent was going to be sufficient enough to provide assistance to COVID patients that had high fibrosis in their lungs, that they could not provide that breakthrough for their airway. So they bring the vent in, and we put it on our mannequin, the one with the airway system. And we're able to then test that vent. We're able to see the volumes that the vent was pushing through the patient to see if for COVID-style patients that had high fibrosis in the lungs that were not allowed to get the actual airflow that they really needed, if it was going to provide the necessary flow for these patients. And that's all through the usage of a biomedical design product that we use to teach, right? So I specifically speaking to those of you who are here that are interested, you students that are interested in biomedical, in looking at how you affect and how you can impact the world. It's not just from a cardiac aspect or from a clinical space. I myself am not a clinician. I'm not, my background is not in healthcare, but I have worked in healthcare my entire career as an IT person, right? So I always like to discuss and bring out the mechanical side when I come out and speak to young people so that they understand that it's not what you just see on the surface. It's not just, oh, this is a mannequin, this is something that's used only for clinical, and only nurses work with them, and only doctors work with them. That is not the case. I break these apart, as you saw in the slide before, right? So as a technician, I learned the ins and outs of these machines and these equipment, and we help look at understanding what these mannequins can and can't do. And in our partnership with a lot of our vendors that we use for simulation, mannequins that we use for pediatrics, for OB, for anesthesia, there are times where we have mannequins that they may have something that we're missing or that's not providing for us. It may not be giving us the feedback that we need. It may not be providing proper blood pressure or so. And we can reach out to them and say, hey, the mannequin you brought us, it's fantastic, it works great, we're able to use it, but we've found that there's an issue here. And we bring it to them. We give them the feedback to say, is there some way that you can improve this? Can we adjust this portion of the mannequin? Something as simple as, we had a mannequin that we used, and it's one of our high volume mannequins that we use in the skills area. And the mannequin has a tube that comes out of its arm that's connected to a blood pressure cuff. So, does everybody know what a blood pressure cuff is? Yeah. So, the blood pressure cuff, it needs, on the mannequin, it needs pressure to recognize inside that it's connected to a PCB board that tells it the pressure is at the level to trigger the blood pressure sound in the mannequin. The problem was that tubing didn't have anything to hold it back, so that when our students, who naturally raise and lower the beds, they move the beds around, they remove patients out of the bed, they went to transition a patient, and they were moving a patient from the bed to a stretcher. And the cuff was connected to the bed, and they ripped that hose right out of the mannequin's arm. There was no stop gate on the mannequin in the design to tell them that it was not gonna, rip it right out of the board. So what happened there is now that mannequin no longer functions, because what happened is it pulled that tubing that goes internally to a PCB board that tells the mannequin to provide the blood pressure that we need for our students. That feedback that we gave back and said, isn't there a way that we could put a stopgap, something to hold and support the tubing from the inside, so that if someone were to pull, it wouldn't rip that board out and make the mannequin no longer function. And they went back and they did redesign. They did changes to the design to make it better. So our partnership allows us to be flexible and open and do that, and work with individuals like yourself. Gomar will come up later and speak to the fact that we have a rep from Gomar. We have an engineering student that was here from FIU. We have multiple that actually work at them, that were students, just like you, that were here at FIU being biomedical study, and now they work with them, and they help design these type of simulators, and help improve the clinical experience for our students in their studies, right? So I'm gonna pivot and show, well, this is also, we work with the National Guard and do simulations also on airplanes, on helicopters, and allows us, again, give them realistic experience, is to be able to provide our simulators and use. So this one specifically, We did 2 different sessions. This one was with Victoria and a 5-year-old, her son, we call Cal. And they were doing, this was a specific design that was to an issue that came up after Katrina. So during Katrina, there was an experience that a lot of people went through where there were a lot of hospitals that were inaccessible. They were not able to get to them and bring critical patients out of the hospital and take them to a safe space. And they ended up losing many patients that way. So there was a movement that was done, and we were one of those teams that decided to build regional teams throughout the country to respond to disasters like this. And one of the partnerships we had was to help train these regional teams where they would come in to our center and they would go through picking up patients at the hospital. They would come in as air medics or that response team. They would come into the center and we would put them through a scenario of the clinical issues that the patient was going through, right? And then they would hand it off to the flight team that was then transporting them. So these regional flight teams and response teams would then take them. They would go down the elevator that we had in the center, go outside, and outside in the loading area behind our building, we had a simulated trailer, essentially, that the internals was designed to be like a C-130 plane. So inside, we had sound, we had racking, we had everything to make it seem as if you were in a plane. And they would then go through scenarios there with our mannequins, simulating the experience of being in flight and having to make sure that this patient is safe. That then transitioned to doing a field operation. And when we did from simulation in the center, we put and brought it out to the field. So we went up to Jacksonville, this is in Jacksonville, and with the Army National Guard, we did the same scenario, but with actual flights. So the patients were out in the field, they were being triaged. The helicopters would come get them in the disaster area, and they would fly them to a safe, like triage hospital space in an airport, that they could now bring the patients, stabilize them, get them prepped and ready to then put them up in a C-130 flight to transport them. We would go up in the C-130 and we would fly and run scenarios at 15,000 feet with these mannequins. We would keep them, we would run scenarios where either the patient crashed, they had to revive them, they had to keep them stabilized, they would have some type of clinical aversion that they had to respond to, and then be able to stabilize the patient in flight, to give them that experience that was simulated, but as real as we could possibly make it, right? So this is one of the experiences we had. So the last thing I wanted to is, we did speak to this, Dr. Dorgan spoke to it too. This is a 3D ultrasound simulator. So we use this with our anesthesia team, and they use it to do cardiac ultrasounding. And unfortunately, it wouldn't display up, but I have a video I'm gonna play real quickly for you guys to see what the system does. We use it in teaching, so it's not only just an ultrasound simulator, but it also does assessment, anatomy, and allows us to evaluate our students through that process. So this is just one example of different ways that we use technology, biomedical engineering designs to impact our students and our student body for the future of healthcare in our case, right? It's to give them as real an experience as possible so that when they go out to the field, they're not completely caught off guard. They are ready for what they're going to see in their clinical spaces. Without this technology, it would allow there to be a bigger gap between the real world and what their real experiences would be, opposed to what they are seeing in their clinical space, right? So it allows us to give them that experience of learning, being able to see all the gamut of the cardiac, the heart sounds, the lung sounds. So again, these mannequins, again, they replicate heart sounds, lung sounds, bowel sounds. We can draw blood. It's as close to a human as possible. So the technology is amazing, and I empower all of you here that are looking to come into this field and move into this field to think about how you can impact the world in whatever aspect you go into, whether it be healthcare or research as well. It's a fantastic thing that we appreciate and love to work with you guys and partner with you guys to develop future appliances and activities. So I'm going to bring up James Nichols. He's our local sales rep for South Florida. He's going to talk to you a little bit more about GoMart and how GoMart is developing these simulators and this technology with the use of biomedical engineers to help us and other simulation centers throughout the country and the world.
Thank you, Alex. That was a very nice description you did today this morning. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So I'm James Nicholas. I'm the local representative for GoMart. And for those of you who didn't know, GoMart is based, it was established in the 1950s, and it was based right here in Miami, down by the Kendall Airport. We now have 7 buildings, and everything is designed and manufactured down there. And as Al said earlier, we have many graduates from this program and from other programs that work for us, and we're constantly growing. So it's a great opportunity to get in and help teach the next generation of medical professionals. And Alan talked to you about some of our models. We make everything from the skills trainers that he talked about all the way up to the most highest fidelity model that actually does have animatronics that shakes your hand. He'll talk back to you. He uses artificial intelligence. And so for those of you interested, we do have a couple of models around in the other room. We have another pediatric house. You can interact with them and talk to them and have some fun. Any other questions, or is there any questions about GoMart or about Al's fantastic center? Yes? For scuba diving? We have a simulator that's trauma housed. You can be hosed down for like what we call a sea burn or chemical burn incident, but nothing that you can actually submerge in water. So not for scuba diving, no, sorry.
There may be one in the future.
Yeah, we're always developing. Like Al said, he gives us feedback and we go back to the engineers and they develop the changes or the corrections and the modifications. We're constantly doing updates. Yep. Oh, so.
Yeah, so in that case, specific case, we actually, on military equipment, vehicles, let's say, and in flight, they actually block a lot of signals, RF as well. Bluetooth at the time wasn't readily available in our mannequins. They are now. But in this case, what we did was they were physically connected, so they were tethered. So let me go back, you'll probably be able to see it. So there's a tablet right there, you see it in the mannequin that's on the top, and between the mannequin's legs is the tablet that controls it. So that tablet was tethered with an Ethernet cable to the mannequin. So it was a direct connected. And that helped us avoid the issue of the signal getting knocked out by in flight, once they were in flight, and losing that communication. So we had to, pivot and change the way we would use it, but essentially that's how we did it. Yeah.
So earlier you said using AI. Can you go more into AI?
Yes. So GoMart has what they call Adult Hal. So Adult Hal, he has an AI model built into him to where currently the way simulation works that we run is some of the mannequins, they have prompts, predetermined speech that you can program and it'll respond, and you can, from the tablet, like the same way I made the baby cry earlier, right? I can send speech commands. When you go over there, you'll be able to see the 5-year-old, it'll be able to do that. And you can also put on a headset and communicate and talk as you were the voice. But for the most part in our center, the way we do it, there's a room behind the sim room. So these simulation rooms, the rooms on the top, in the middle, there's a big empty room that's called the control room. So we sit in that room outside and we see into the simulation space through a one-way mirror. So they can't see us, but we can see them, and we control everything. On that end, there's audio-visual cameras, all this stuff, right? There's a microphone there that we have developed to use as the voice of the mannequin. So it's a lot easier than prompting it through the mannequin. But the AI, going back to that, what it does is, now using the technology of the AI, you can pre-program a scenario, a case for that patient. So let's say we want a patient that's hypertensive and has high blood pressure and all that, right? We program it into this design for the patient and we feed it to the system. Now, when I talk to the mannequin, it's a conversation. We no longer have to be in the back prompting the mannequin to respond and being the voice of the mannequin to respond. Now, with the AI, the mannequin has all the information that we have built and designed for it to respond. So when I come into the room and I say, "Hi, Mr. Miller, how are you today?" The mannequin will just say, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm feeling a little bit of pressure on my chest. It's not a great day," right? And you can go back and forth and say, "Oh, well, sorry to hear that. Why is it that you're feeling this way? What is it that's really bothering you?" And the mannequin will respond back with the clinical responses that we want it to have. So that's what we're using that specific AI for. It allows the conversation flow to be simple and straightforward. Again, same thing, it's a biomedical response and design for what we were needing, right? The back and forth of the room through speakers doesn't seem very real. Sometimes we actually had to develop, because sometimes the speakers in the mannequin's head and stuff would lose quality and they wouldn't sound that great and it didn't sound very realistic. So we actually developed a pillow that has speakers in it, and we hide it behind our patient. So our mannequin lays on the pillow, the speakers are there, they're hidden, you don't see them, but when we talk through our microphone, the sound comes right out of those speakers. So it was a technology design that we did to fill a problem that we were having, but now the AI has taken that to the next level, because now I don't have to necessarily use that microphone anymore. The mannequin can do it for us, and we're right now in clinical simulation and in clinical healthcare, where we are in our industry, is very, 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 very prominent. AI is attacking a lot of that space. Even our simulation encounters. When we do our simulations, our students come in, they sit in these debriefing rooms, so there's these classrooms right here. So they sit there, they come in and they're watching the rooms live, the simulation live. So students will go in, they'll run a case, and the rest of the students are watching live, right? As they're watching, they're able to see the encounter, what's going on. They come back together afterwards, and they'll discuss what transpired and what happened. They sit with a team that we developed, it's called the STU, so there's a facilitator that's designed to keep the scenario within the parameters of what the expectation is for that case, and then they'll discuss it as a learning experience to say, hey, you know, this happened, this transpired, you responded in this way, why was it that you responded this way? And it's a learning experience. We are expecting students to make mistakes, and they're happy mistakes. They're not mistakes that we get upset. It's because we want them to learn here in our setting, in a safe space, than to do it out in the clinical space, in the real world, right? The AI now, there's designs to where even the AI is evaluating those encounters, and the AI will get fed the scenario details of what we expect and what we want the students to actually, the learning objectives for that case, and it would evaluate whether it hit those learning objectives, and it'll tell you at the end, it'll do a summary and say, okay, the student did X, Y, and Z, they maybe missed this, maybe they could have responded differently to that. So the AI is also coming into that side of it, but you know, the industry is moving with it and adopting it and looking at what can we use it and leverage it for the benefit of our students. Anything else? Well, I thank you very much for your time. I thank you for being here, and I wish you the best of luck. I hope many of you come and bring your knowledge and your studies here to FIU, and we maybe see you in the Star Center in the future. Thank you very much.
All right, so if that was interesting, you can also go and learn more about the mannequins, maybe I think interact with them a little more closely in the session that we're having next. So what I want to do now is, if you don't already have your poster up, you're presenting a poster, please make sure you get that done as soon as possible. Everyone here who wants to go and see the outreach portion and the poster session, if you want to do both, please meet back in that area. So I'll get all the high school students back into the front area there. What we're going to do is we're going to divide you in half. And half of you will come over here for the posters to start, and half will go over there, but we'll promise that we'll switch, all right? So if you really want to see one or the other, you'll get to see both, all right? So please exit that way, sit out front, and we'll have some folks that will help